We're going to do a basic route summarization demonstration in Packet Tracer based on the lab 6.4.4 of the Cisco curriculum, routing protocols curriculum. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with an 1841 router. And I'm going to drag it out here. We're also going to grab another 1841 router and drag it over here. Okay. And then I'll grab a third 1841 router, drag it over here, and a fourth one and drag it over here. So we'll start off with that. And then once all of these start up, I'm going to change the names and we're going to add some interfaces. So I think this one started up by now, so I'm going to select it, go to config, and change the name of this to R1. All right. This will be R2 in the display name. So R1, R2. This one will be R3. And this one will be R4. Okay, so we've got our 4 routers right there. Now this one right here, if we're going to follow the packet tracer from chapter 6.4.4 basic route summarization, needs 2 Ethernet NICs and 3 serial NICs. So we're going to select it. We'll go to physical. We will turn it off, right? And hopefully we have room to add our NICs. Right now we have Ethernet NICs, but what we need is WIC 2Ts, smart serial. So we're going to drag this and pop that sucker in there. And then we'll drag another one and pop that one in over here, right? And now we should have 4 serial interfaces and 2 Ethernets. So we'll turn our router on now, and then we'll examine our interfaces. All right, we've got it on. It's starting up. Eventually we can go to config here, and you'll see now in this config, fast Ethernet 0001, then we've got serial 000, and then we've got 4 serial interfaces to work with. Okay, so we added WIC 2Ts, the 2-port asynchronous synchronous serial network modules. 2, we just dragged them right in and then turned it on. So now this router has the necessary requirements. Now this router over here has 2 Ethernet NICs built in, but it also needs at least 1 serial interface. So what we'll do is click on this one, go to physical, shut it off, drag in a WIC 2T, or just select WIC 2T and then drag it in from this picture, which we just did, right? And then fire it up. So now it should have 2 Ethernet interfaces and 2 serial interfaces. All right, it's starting up. We should probably click on it now. Oh, it's still booting up. And now you can see it has 2 Ethernet and 2 serial interfaces. So this one's ready to go, and it's turned on. So right now we'll just deal with these 2 routers right here. I'll pull these over to the side. We're not dealing with them. R1 and R2. Okay. Okay, now to set this up, once again, I'm following the Cisco 6.4.4 curriculum here. What we need to do is we're going to set up 2 networks up here. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to grab 2 2960 switches. I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one here. Okay? Switch 1 and switch 2, let's say. All right? We're going to connect these. So I'll go to the cabling, and I'll get router to switch. Ethernet on the router to switch is a straight through cable. So I'll grab a straight through cable, and I'll go to fast Ethernet 00, and then over to the first port, the first Ethernet port on the switch. And then I'll do the same thing here. Fast Ethernet 01 over to the switch. All right, so we got those connected. All right. All right, now that looks good. Now what we want to do, now for the serial interface, we'll have R1 be the clock. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to go to the cabling, and I'm going to scroll over, and I'm going to look for the serial DCE port, right? And I'll grab that, and I'm going to put that on the first serial interface here, serial 000, and I'm going to scroll down here and then put it on the first serial interface of this one, right? So this one's the clock, and this one is not. So this guy's playing the role of the DCE, and this router's playing the role of the DTE. All right, fair enough. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to address out just this part first to make things easier. All right, and we can see right off the bat, well, and I'm going to label everything out too. So I'm going to label out the networks so that we know which networks we're working with right now. I'll grab this one, and so for this network between these two routers, we're going to create 173.16.71.4/30. So that's the network that we're going to use to go in between these two routers. Now, I've changed the addressing slightly from the packet tracer 6.4.4 in the Cisco curriculum just to protect the innocent. But it basically follows along quite closely. So now what we can do is we could just put these addresses on these interfaces, and we could do that really quickly. Now, R1 will get the first usable address, and R2 will get the second usable. And by the way, with this type of network address, right, this is a classless address because it's /30, right, /30, meaning the network is 4, the first usable host is 5, the second usable host is 6, and the broadcast address is going to be 7. So 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the next network would be .8, right? So we're going to set this interface's IP address to 173.16.71.5/30, serial 000. So let's do that really quickly. We'll go in here, command line interface, hit enter, type enable, type conf t for configure terminal, type interface serial 0/0/0, IP address. What was the address we were going to do? Okay, here it is, 173.16.71.5 with a 255.255.255.252 if it's /30. We'll hit enter. We have to give it a clock rate because it's the DCE. It's got the clock, 64,000. And then we'll type no shutdown. Okay, now it's up. Now, even though it's up, it's still red because this interface on this router has to go up. So we're going to do that one really quickly. We'll click on this router, go to command line interface, enter, enable, conf t, which is short for configure terminal, int, which is short for interface, serial 0/0/0. All right, that's beautiful. IP address 173.16.71.6. Okay, and then our subnet mask. All right, no shut, which is short for no shutdown, and hit enter. And now you can see that our interfaces are up here. The first usable host is on R1, the second usable host is on R2. We've set up this network. Okay, our next two networks that we have to lay out are these two networks here coming off of the router to these switches. There's no hosts really attached, but that's fine. Well, I'm going to label it 173.16.64.0/23. Okay, once again, non-classful network, right? Subnet. And then we're going to do that again, and 173.16.66.0/23. Okay, so since these are /23s, they're going to be 512 hosts. So the hosts will go from 64.0 64.1, 64.2, all the way up to 255, then 65.0, 65.1.2, all the way up to 65.255, which will be the broadcast address, and then the next network is the 66 network. And this will go all the way up to 67.255, which will be the broadcast address. Why? These are /23, right? 512 hosts. Magic number on this network is 2. So the networks go up by 2. From 64, the next network would be 66.